It's often the case that products made in Nigeria cost more than imported ones. Can tomato concentrate made here compete price-wise with those from China in, say, the Ghanaian market, since we're looking at exporting?
It depends what China decides to do, or other exporting countries, whether they want to subsidize, whether the Chinese, whether the importers in Ghana or other want to also reduce the content of tomato and substitute it with starch. If they decide to do so, maybe we would never want to do that, or other exporters from Nigeria, because even if the processor in Nigeria wanted to do so, it doesn't have, the processor doesn't have the capacity to do it. Why? Because we don't have ample capacity of or quantity of food grade starch, where it is available in other countries. To us, we also import the food grade of starch. So that's one of the content that they use to adulterate this tomato. For us, even the food grade starch is more expensive than the ordinary tomato. So there's no choice for anyone to adulterate or to do so. So if the level playing ground is possible, definitely in 2 years, Nigeria will export to other countries.
You talked about capacity now. There have been concerns in some quarters that there's currently inadequate primary processing capacity to meet the country's needs. How are we doing in this area?
Well, you see, this is just the beginning of the policy. And I think from this month, right? So now, investors will want to see how consistent the government remains and how it drives the policy to ensure compliance. Once this is noticed to be positive, I can assure you there will be more investors coming into this segment and to invest in the processing capacity. And also, tomato processing is not very highly...
It's not rocket science.
You know, you can have a small $1 million, $500,000 processing facility. Somebody can have $100 million or $200 million facility. Everyone can do within the size one feels is good within his pocket or capacity. So that's the beauty about this. And you can do it in Ondo, in Kano, in Sokoto, in Maiduguri, or in Bayelsa, in a greenhouse. So anyone can decide to do the process within the size of the pocket. There are even some mobile equipment that you can drive around the farm and crush it and package it and sell within the community. Not like rice, where when you harvest, you still have to take a big mill to process it and package it for cooking. Tomato, you can process it immediately, next day it goes to the kitchen and you are ready to consume. So with this gap you're looking at, we have the capacity today of 1,200 tons per day, which means in a year we can produce throughout the whole season period, and we can produce 1,200 tons. That's the capacity we have, and we are planning in next year to double this capacity to 2,400. In 2019, we expect to be over 5,000 tons per day capacity. I believe the Nigerian demand is within 7,000 to 8,000 tons per day capacity, which we believe within a shortest period of time, 8,000 per day capacity is nothing. All it requires is probably within 45,000 hectares of land. Out of almost 6 million lands that, hectares of land that are available within the cultivation is peanut. All we need is the incentive for farmers to grow. Already today in Kadawa, where our factory is, we've got signed off of farmers, of 5,000 farmers, ready to supply into our farm, into our own factory. And that area alone, we have 23,000 hectares of land. So if all the farmers in Kadawa decide to do a seasonal tomato program, they alone will provide 50% of the country's need in terms of processing demand. So which means if other states like Kaduna, like Katsina, Jigawa, up down to the Kogi, Niger, Nasarawa, and other states, there are over 12 states that are in commercial production of tomato. If every one state decides to contribute only 5,000 of farmers, you're talking about sufficient production within the first season. But are there enough industry to uptake the excess? That's why the policy is necessary to discourage much of import and incentivize local process. And then you will see investors coming in and adding. On our own plan is by next year, we're adding almost 2 million tons of fresh tomato into the market. Why are we doing that? We're ensuring that not only that we inject more seedlings into the market for higher yield, but using even the same acreage, we get a higher yield per hectare, somewhere around, for local farmers, between 40-45 tons per hectare, against the current 8 to 10, 12 tons per hectare. We, on a commercial level, we expect to get about 70 tons to 80 tons per hectare. So with this number of acreage, if we put in about 10,000, 15,000 hectares into use between our own farm and the outgrowers farm, we're talking about over almost 2 million additional to the market. So definitely, the whole strategy is to ensure there is no shortage of fresh tomato, and also there's enough raw tomato for the industry, so that Nigerians will not have to feel any difference. In fact, we believe that subsequently the packaged tomato paste price will come down within the next year or so, because there's no way we can increase the capacity, price will not come down.
Let's take a break now, but first here are some quick facts about the tomato industry in Nigeria. Nigeria is the second largest producer of tomato in Africa and the 13th largest producer in the world. Nigeria is the 8th largest importer of tomato paste in the world and the largest in Africa. Nigeria is said to import an average of 200,000 metric tons of tomato concentrate per annum at about 54 billion naira a year. Almost half of Nigeria's tomato paste import comes from China and Italy. Nigerian farmers produce between 1.8 and 2 million tons of tomatoes a year, but over 750,000 tons is lost to rot. Current demand for fresh tomato fruits is estimated at about 2.5 million metric tons per annum.